Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Machine Logic. I'm Jill. This is my partner Charlie of Simple Machines, and today we are talking. This is going to be part one in a two-part series about why companies are switching from Salesforce to HubSpot. Charlie, we are fresh off a couple Salesforce to HubSpot migration projects. One with a paint manufacturer and the other a global cybersecurity firm and advisory. And the same pattern keeps showing up. What are they? What have we been hearing?
Yeah, I mean, there's some differences, but there are some commonalities, and I would say the big ones, probably the most obvious, would be cost, and we'll talk about this. But I think companies, especially right now, are seeing that they are under pressure to do more with less budget. They marketing and sales teams are trying to find places to put back into revenue generating channels and resources. And when they have an opportunity to move some of that out of software and into those places, that's a big opportunity for them. So cost is a big one. And I think the other big one is just the complexity and the fatigue of dealing with a CRM that is creating more headaches than it's solving.
Right on. So today we're breaking down the real reasons for the switch and what the cost picture looks like when you truly factor in everything. So Charlie, one of the things you mentioned was fatigue. Uh, that oftentimes these platforms are over-engineered into complexity that is way beyond what any organization would need, and how that complexity creates a lot of IT dependency. So, can you speak a little to that?
For sure. And it's worth remembering a lot of these companies, they bought Salesforce because it's the market leader. It's best in class, the safe bet. You won't get fired for onboarding with Salesforce. And then I think at a certain point, reality hits where they are realizing they're using maybe a quarter or less of the features and functionality that Salesforce has. At the same time, they're having trouble getting their teams to use it because, like you mentioned, Salesforce, the user experience is very much IT world versus like sales and marketing and service folks, where it's more intuitive, which is where HubSpot really plays more. So there's this confluence of pain for them, where it's a lot of complexity. And to get what they need out of Salesforce, I think what we see is either they have a very high paid Salesforce admin that is doing this and it's a big cost center for them, or they have, an outsourced consultancy that even when it comes to simple updates that they need made, it can be days or longer to get these things done, and that's just not acceptable for them.
Totally true. Yeah, a lot of t tales from the front that we've been hearing on these latest projects has been people getting stuck waiting on admins, whether in-house or externally, to make simple changes, and just that the add-ons for things like integrations and support and development have spiraled, and how it has just become a cost center versus
Mhm.
a revenue driver.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we can give examples. There was one where it was actually this was an instance where at the time they had HubSpot and Salesforce connected, and there was a sync error because the field in HubSpot had a lower character limit than in Salesforce, and simply to cap the field character limit on Salesforce, we had to call this guy. We had two meetings. It was like 2 weeks later before we got this resolved, and I think that was one of the straws that broke the camel's back in that case.
For sure. So, you mentioned that most people were going with Salesforce as it was a market leader, couldn't make a bad decision. So, why is HubSpot now more of a serious alternative? What's changed?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in the old days, right, HubSpot was very much SMB marketing automation. And over the years, they've been pivoting, but I think especially in the last, 12 to 24 months, they've made a very concerted effort to move up market and be more of a true sort of mid-market solution. So there's quite a bit that goes into that. I mean, part of it is features that the bigger companies need, like, more nuanced permission sets. The custom reporting has come leaps and bounds from where it used to be. There are things like multi-account management where, let's say you're a venture capital rolling up a bunch of firms. Now you can manage multiple accounts with one admin, which in the old days was not a thing that HubSpot was able to provide. I would say privacy and security is a big one too. So being able to use HubSpot and still be compliant with things like HIPAA and financial securities are going to be um, a big reason why it's more mid-market friendly. Um, and I think just being um, having a UI that is just more sort of front office friendly is just helping some of these companies faster, faster adoption, faster time to value versus Salesforce, where it's going to be just a long uphill battle.
Yep. Faster time to value is important, not just with initial onboarding for something new, but also from a migration standpoint as you're moving away. The multi-account management angle is interesting. As you noted, one of the examples of the projects that I think you gave as an example was a private equity platform that was rolling up multiple commercial HVAC companies and being able to manage that with the separate permissions and brands is something that HubSpot has really done a great job of.
That's a good summary of sort of the feature side. I think the other component of this is the cost, like we were alluding to at the beginning. So, if you're a small business or mid-market and you're trying to free up budget for more revenue generating activity, like how much are we talking about? This could potentially be a very wide-ranging conversation because what I think the bottom line here is the licensing cost is one part of this. The total cost of ownership, there's a lot here. And what we can do is take a quick look. We have a resource that kind of outlines some of this using some research. But what you'll see is, so this is comparing HubSpot Enterprise versus Salesforce Enterprise. Yes, there are differences in terms of the license cost. But where you can imagine this getting really impactful is when you consider things like how much it's costing not only to onboard and implement data migration, integrations, how much are you paying someone to manage this? HubSpot admin in the low 70s versus multiple Salesforce folks who've, gone through all of the paid training and accreditations that are needed for them to have those jobs is not even close. I mean, that's a huge difference.
Hmm.
And then similarly, I think one thing that can be overlooked is what is included in HubSpot versus what's included out of the box with Salesforce. So even things like, going above 100,000 API calls in a day, if you've got a lot of integrations, that's huge. Data storage, if you're going over 10 gigabytes, even things like that.
Yeah,
If you're looking for add-ons like sales email, and alerts, sales calling, like enterprise companies especially, but even mid-market, I mean, these are all in play. So those costs add up really quick.
for sure. Yeah. Harkening back again to this speed to value, the Salesforce onboarding take months. Like you said, you can still see spotty adoption, uh, faster time to value, something that's here, and just the lower training burden, right? Um, the opportunity cost and the upside is huge.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean that's the exact stuff we're hearing from people we're working with. So it makes sense that we're seeing this tick up.
From a training and adoption standpoint, it's not just about switching to what's cheaper, but what's more geared toward go-to-market professionals versus IT and developers. It's about switching to something that those folks will actually use and want to use, and to see that cost match the value.
Definitely.
Cool. Um, if you're curious how your own total cost of ownership stacks up, we'll share a calculator in the notes for you to use. And in the next video, we'll break down the onboarding experience. So, what a Salesforce to HubSpot migration actually looks like, where teams are getting the fastest wins, and what features are driving adoption, not just for small businesses, but for mid-market too.